Mr. Adepo, thank you very much for your presence with us. In your capacity as director for Institutes for Peace and Security Studies, speaking from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, we would like to ask you about COVID-19 and its impact in Ethiopia, in the Eastern African region, and in Africa in general. My first question would be, since the first reported case on the 13th of March, the government of Ethiopia took some measures, including the declaration of state of emergency to stem the spread of COVID-19. What do you think of the nature and the impact of these measures? Are they enough to contain the impact of COVID-19?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The government of Ethiopia has been doing, to my understanding, its level best so as to contain, particularly to prevent before it took place. And it started with mobilization of resources, allocation of resources, just in preparation, and closing universities and colleges and schools and primary schools all together so as to stay there, not to spread that is just in case it breaks out. And at the same time, meetings were turned to be online or virtual, so that all were being taken, but still when the public was not behaving the way the government wanted it, then it has to enter into state of emergency declaration. So this is a state of emergency which declared just yesterday evening, which is still, as we speak here, being narrated and explained. It is jurisdictions, how much it is outside of constitution, how much it can go extra lengths, extra miles, so as to completely prevent and control this pandemic. I think people are being time and again educated. There are so many other activities which are not really mentioned, such as World Health Organization time and again taught us over mass media, this hand wash, public or social distance keeping, not handshaking. These all have been time and again, of course, communicated through the media, churches, mosques, but still public was not very well aware for ages, for centuries, I would say. People are so used to this hugging, coming together. So that being the case, then the government must move on to taking this action. And how effective will this action be? That's a very good question. We human beings are social animals. We are also political animals. We always choose our comfort zone. So we also sometimes like to be regulated. Our behavior must be regulated. For instance, some of bars, restaurants that said, which happen to host some dancing and cultural shows, they were told to close, but they couldn't. Then you have to move on to taking legal measures. So these were necessitated by when people really not abiding, or when they refused, then government moved. I would say this is the right move in the right direction, simply because if you simply keep on preaching but not practicing, if you don't really take some measures, people's behavior is quite difficult, particularly when you have group behavior. So group behavior needs also disciplining as well. And definitely this is in public discourse, not only my personal opinion. So I think that is quite important. Now, another question which came out from your excellent question is that, is it enough? Is it not enough, to be honest? It should be accompanied with, again, that incessant education. The education, always is a matter of mind, change of behavior that really brings sustainable change in people's attitude. So attitude change, thinking change, behavioral change is very important. And then side by side also, this stick and the carrot going together is very, very important. That is how I perceive.
I think that all government are, for the time being, learning by doing, and that communication is of a paramount importance in dealing with this virus. My second question is related to the regional reaction to this this virus. We know that the Eastern African region decided to mobilize all its means and put in common the information and data and knowledge in order to tackle this virus. I know that there was a meeting at the regional level. Do you think that more is needed in terms of attracting the cooperation of all the member states of the East African region in order to coordinate their efforts and be more efficient?
That's another crucial question. Whatever Ethiopia alone does can not have lasting impacts on the human security or sustainable cure from this COVID-19. So regional communication and cooperation is very vital, simply because coronavirus, when it started in China, you know, some people started to think that it's only Chinese, but it is mine, it's yours, it's global concern. It really shows, it's taught the very meaning of security, that security is indivisible, that human security, whatever if you are affected in Morocco, I will be affected in Ethiopia, someone will be affected in Washington, DC. So if we really want to prevent effectively in Ethiopia, then we must cooperate with IGAD member countries and of course Eastern Africa altogether. Unless we put together, then if we failed here, Kenya will catch call immediately. Djibouti will continue. So what's been done now at IGAD level is, as you rightly mentioned, some measures have been taken, mobile testing for instance. And at the same time again, 3 days ago, over about $100,000 were meted out, given out, donated to each country, each member countries. There are for each of them, $100,000 were donated, so as to contain the disease, particularly for sanitation equipment, and again for education campaign and for voluntary services, plus those people who cannot stay at home because they have no means of living, they must go out, then so as to feed these people. Such donations were done by those regional governments. But that's not enough again, because China came to control it. It followed strict discipline. So this disciplining aspect is very important. And again, education is very important. Disseminating education centrally from Djibouti, because there is IGAD secretariat. So in Addis, which is AU secretariat, if we really have that regional action, which can, my thinking, my gut tells me that cooperative action, that united action can possibly stop. And that also paves the way for Africa's greater, this Pan-African idea of free trade areas, where you really can see Africa as one community, which time of coronavirus, we came out, then tomorrow also when it goes out, we can come to trade and we can come to cooperate with each other, and then we can also deal with those poverty issues as well. So it is also teaching a lesson as well.
Thank you. Let me now, for my last question, move from the sub-regional to the continental level and ask you if the African Union has, in addition to the meeting that took place in the end of February in anticipation of this virus reaching Africa, if the African Union has taken any initiatives in terms of coordinating the efforts of its members, and if the international community responded positively to the call by the Director General of WHO and by the Secretary General of the UN for the partners of Africa to help African countries contain this virus. Has the international community proved some kind of forthcoming in order to help the African continent to deal with this virus?
This is a very practical question. At AU level, there have been a lot of efforts being done. Of course, fundraising is there. And at the same time, meetings and devising some strategies there. And to my mind, our Prime Minister and Alibaba owner, Jack Ma, they also brought some very essential equipment to distribute to all member countries, such as masks, such as equipment, and maybe ventilators as well. So I think that is one strategy, which is international cooperation, particularly, of course, with Chinese government and with Chinese investment. And today, this afternoon, I read GP, that is a global partnership in about hundreds of millions of dollars, again, donated to the African Union, and which is going to be, of course, disseminated and again, to be distributed so as to control this disease. But at the same time, I definitely, my heart goes out when I happen to hear, still from at global level, this sort of not very well cooperating and making sort of, unfriendly remarks on testing of virus, for instance, which we really heard, and it does not really, match up to my audience here to even speak about. And I think such remarks, they divide rather than unite us in such time that we have to come together. We have to, stand together so as to fight this global evil, because this virus doesn't require color or creed or passport to go from one place to another place. It doesn't need any visa. But when people really are still with that colonial mentality and even threatening some because of the difference that you are different color or different religion, I think that's just not really useful. And I think international community must pay attention to such attitudes, and these should be confronted directly. And we expect, of course, more attention to Africa. And by the way, your leader, or former leader, I would say, my brother and colleague, Karim, and myself, our 7 of us, developed a blog, and it is the title is that disease like poverty doesn't stay at home, which is translated into Arabic, into French, into different languages. We also had the 10-second voice, which says, again, in darkness, think tankers keep on their light. We also disseminated these things as raising awareness. And in our article, we stated and we stressed time and again that Africa must not be forgotten by the global north and the international community. So I think more is to be done. We're expecting more from global community or international community.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Adeto, for making yourself available for this interaction from Addis Ababa to Rabat. I hope to see you very soon. Keep safe, and all the best to the friendly and brotherly people of Ethiopia.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you indeed.